In today's video, we're going to go down a little bit of a different path. We're going to start here at the collision report with the Fitz and McCain. But we're going to end up in a completely different place. And I'm going to warn you, I'm going to make an allegation at the end that's probably going to make quite a few people angry. And it's got nothing to do with politics, nothing to do with the administrator. It has to do with something I dug up. And it was controversial when I covered it a few months ago, and it's going to be controversial again today. So here we go. All right, reading through the report, I remember seeing this and not following up on it. At the very end, when they're talking about the causes, in this next to last paragraph, it says, "The command leadership did not foster a culture of critical self-assessment following a near collision in mid-May. Leadership made no effort to determine the root cause and take corrective action in order to improve the ship's performance." You're talking about the Fitzgerald here. Now, I have scoured and scoured and scoured the internet with every tool I know how to find any kind of a reference to this near collision in mid-May with the Fitzgerald, and I can't find it. I've said before, the contributors here are the best. If anyone else can find it, I would love to hear about it. Where it was, what was involved, how it all happened. But it got me thinking about this comment of culture. That here we see this is the change of command ceremony that happened. This is May, actually, mid-May of last year, where Commander Bryce Benson takes over from, I think his name is Shu, S-H-U. Robert Shu. They had a change of command ceremony here, and through here, they talk about the Fitzgerald. "I look forward to being with my Fitzgerald family in support of future missions and exercises. This is the best ship and the best crew on the waterfront, hands down," said Benson. "I am proud to work alongside the Navy's best and brightest men and women who protect and support the Pacific region and our allies. Fitz has always been ready for every task and performed admirably. You set the bar for readiness. You are executing national tasking right now. I am super proud of this crew. You are all rock stars." Now, how do we get from there to within a month, a crew that was derelict and lazy and unable to even pilot their boat properly, allegedly? How do those two things marry up? And so I did some digging. Being a human intelligence guy, I've always made the allegation that all intelligence is human intelligence. Even the electronics that you intercept, a human had to be responsible for. So I was digging up this history of all of the different events that happened, and this is 25 May. This is the Dewey. Now, the Dewey was, along with the Statham and the Mayhem, over there doing these freedom of navigation operations in the South China Sea. Just getting within, as close as they could to these new man-made islands to challenge the Chinese claim that they were territorial waters. But this got me thinking. The ship was within 12 nautical miles of Mischief Reef for about 90 minutes, zigzagging in the water near the installation. At one point, there's an air installation there, by the way. At one point during the operation, the ship's crew conducted a man overboard drill, a U.S. official told USNI News. Now, this is 6 May 2017. Okay, now, this is 5 August. The Statham actually has a sailor go overboard 6 weeks later. 6 weeks later, yeah. In the same area. With no explanation, really. No good explanation. He was reported missing and assumed overboard. No one actually saw this guy go overboard. Unlike this issue over here off the coast of North Carolina, apparently people saw him go overboard. And that's this guy here. Now, very recently, we had, who remembers this? This is the guy that apparently went missing. They thought he was dead, thought he was overboard. Oh, and he magically turns back up after allegedly just hiding in the engine room. Now, this is a 2 January of this year article. And I want to read you what was disclosed on this, and you're not going to believe it. Let me get down here. Stresses culminated in clear instability in Mim's behavior days before disappearance, paranoid delusion. Told one crew member that he could stop running engineering department engines by pulsating electricity with his body. He could shoot fireballs out of his hands. And unexplained absence from watch on June 5, after which Mims quipped to his fellow crew members, "If you are looking for me and can't find me, then you are looking too hard." Mims became increasingly paranoid delusional, later telling investigators that he believed that people had been ordered to follow him and that they were observing him in berthing and around the ship. Mims showed another sailor how he had placed tape on his rack and vents of his locker to prevent anyone from sticking items in his area to frame him. The days before he went missing, Mims met with his chain of command to discuss options for leaving the Navy early, and then went and cleared out his workspace locker, telling shipmates he was spring cleaning. Mims disappeared on June 8th. He was finally discovered on June 15th, squirreled away in engineering space. Escape passengers covered in urine and feces and equipped with a camelback, a multi-tool, Peeps candy, and an empty peanut butter jar with him. Okay, now, part of my background was I was a Spanish linguist. I was an interrogator. They call them human intelligence collector. I've done a lot of work with people who have had access to large amounts of drugs before. And this is clinical drug use. Clearly, that's what was going on here. So, if this was all going on, they're saying here now that, Captain Adam Aycock, subordinates failed to adequately assess Mims not fit for full duty, erratic behavior, all this kind of stuff. And here's something where they blow it completely. Why were the signs missed? Because everyone was really busy with significant and dynamic pressures facing the 7th Fleet after the twin collisions of Arleigh Burke-class destroyer Fitzgerald and McCain. This happened a week before the Fitzgerald. They found him 2 days before. He went missing on the 8th, was recovered on the 15th. The Fitzgerald didn't happen until the 17th. So the Navy screwed up their story here about what was really going on. The problems may have been magnified under Aycock's command. Sailors' comments from the Shiloh Command climate surveys obtained by Navy Times. A crew on the brink of disaster feels like a race to see which will break down first, the ship or its crew. Now, the Shiloh, I have covered before, and here's where things get controversial. Okay, here's an article they talk about it being a floating prison, and where they pretty much throw the commander under the boat, so to speak. And they talk about, huge punishments for minor infractions, suicidal thoughts. Now, it sounds to me, honest to God, like there might be a systemic drug problem aboard this vessel. And strangely enough, there's some other odd things that were going on aboard the Shiloh. And here there's somebody, once again, talking about how bad it's just all the commander's fault. But we look at the history of the commander, and we don't see anything but a guy who absolutely did a fantastic job in everything else he did. Tours on the Rodney Davis, USS Mobile Bay, ASW officer, communications officer. Skipping shore duty, he rolled back to sea for his department of head tours as ops on the Statham and the Princeton. Community manager and detailer. Early command as CEO of MCM Crew Reaper Gladiator. USS Sentry. CEO of the USS Mayhan. So, there's no history with this guy, that this would be his problem. Now, I made an allegation a long time ago, when they talk about all of these ships that have all of this advanced electronics warfare. What you learn in intelligence is that your enemy's not going to go after that. They're going to hit you where you live. they're going to get into areas that aren't restricted, that don't require high-level access. I said it before, you can disable most of the crew with just access to the galley. I'm going to say it again. You can disable most of a ship's crew with access to the galley. Now, this was going on as well. I covered this. This is the Shiloh. This is May 28th, and they talk about the Shiloh sailors celebrating Ramadan. This was a week or two before the issue with this Peter Mims. Okay, and I talked about one person. I caught a bunch of crap for this, but I'm going to say it again. This Specialist Senior Chief Yahya Seze, a Muslim sailor from Sierra Leone. That's a country in West Africa. This guy, and I've looked him up, he is former Special Operations and a Muslim. Part of Special Operations training is this type of interdiction, low-level warfare, and PSYOPs. If anybody had been flipped and could screw with an entire crew, it would be this guy. Okay, and I brought up another article here where it talks about a Shiloh sailor becoming a U.S. citizen. Here, this person came from Togo. Okay, this person wasn't even a U.S. citizen, but this person was, in fact, let me get this right, a culinary specialist. After attending Navy boot camp and culinary specialist A school, she reported to her first duty station aboard the Tycho-class cruiser Shiloh. So here's two West Africans, a place notorious for terrorism and having terrorists and having access to drugs. Now, we've talked about these people going overboard and people going missing. I'm telling you, this sounds just like they spiked either the food or the water with this insanity shit, this flakka. And I know this is a reach, but that's why I tried to pull up all these tabs to show you how I got here. That we had, remember, prior to May, no problems, no issues. No, you didn't hear about people going missing, people going overboard. You didn't hear about ships losing control of steering or ships magically getting clobbered by cargo ships. You didn't hear about this, and then all of a sudden, wham. We see it in May. We see, boom, event, May, June, July, August. And then all of a sudden, it all goes away. Now, I know it's controversial to say that somebody in our Navy might have infiltrated and created havoc aboard one of our ships, but I'm telling you, that's what, if I was an investigator, this is what I would be looking at. I would absolutely be looking at who was bringing what aboard when and what they had access to. There was another video where I showed the Shiloh and the Fitz parked right next to each other. They were at shore leave together. And this might be something the Navy's trying to hide. That this might have actually been a much larger systemic problem. Drug addiction. Because it is. It was in when I was in. There was guys using all sorts of stuff to stay awake or just to stay happy, or it's just part and parcel of the military. But if there were someone who had designs on creating a nightmare aboard our vessels, this would be the way to do it. And I find it very strange that there were 4 sailors aboard the Shiloh that were celebrating Ramadan, meaning they were Muslims, and there was also people aboard who weren't U.S. citizens who had access to the galley, who were from West Africa. So, I know I'm going to catch crap for this, but, I caught crap for talking about the Electoral College, and I was right. And I caught crap for talking about the issue with the Fitz, and I was right. So, and that's comes from having an independent mind regarding certain things. I wasn't on either side really in the election when it started. And in the sense of this, having being an Army guy, I wasn't so willing, like a lot of Navy guys were, to just believe what the Navy was saying about the issues with the Fitz. simply because I wanted another club to hit Obama with. And that's what we ran into with Michael Savage and everyone else that was even addressing the issue with the Fitz and the McCain. They only wanted to address it so that they could beat up on Obama and blame it on Obama and not really look into the facts of the case. So I think that might be one of the issues that we would be facing over there, is terrorists attempting to infiltrate our ships, get people on the inside, and get our people under the influence of drugs. So anyway, I know it's not what we normally talk about, but there's evidence for it, and I'm going to stand by what I said. So like, share, subscribe. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time. Thank you.